According to de Broglie's hypothesis, that a moving particle always associated with the by an wave whose wavelength is given by inversely proportional to its momentum. It was the hypothesis of the de Broglie. Now, until and unless it is conclusively proved by the experiment, then it will not become say acceptable to anyone. For any theory, whenever until it is proved by the experiment, it will not be acceptable. Now, the Davisson and Germer experiment puts the de Broglie's hypothesis on a firm basis. That means the result of the Davisson and Germer experiment conclusively proved that the de Broglie's hypothesis is correct. Now, Davisson and Germer now made a vacuum apparatus to study the scattering of the electron from the metal target. Now, this apparatus consists of an electron gun, the source of electron. Electrons are emitted from that electron gun by thermionic emission. Now, this is an electron gun from which it's a red hot filament, the source of electrons are emitted through thermionic emission, and these electrons are accelerated passing through a fine slit and accelerated by an accelerating potential which is applied between this filament and this one. A high potential is applied. Now the electrons are accelerated through this and produce a fine beam of electron. Now this electron beam hits a metal target which is nickel here, and the scattered electrons are detected by the detector, which can move on the arc of a circle from here to here. Now this is the detector D. Now, so this is the scattering angle, suppose say phi, and these are the two glancing angles theta. Now, initially the whole apparatus is placed in an evacuated chamber. The detector is outside the chamber. Now, during the experimental process, an accident occurred, that is, the air entered into their evacuated chamber and the nickel surface become oxidized, and to deoxidize this nickel surface, they heated this target to a very high temperature, and then again the experiments started. Now, after in the second phase of the experiment, they observed some peculiar phenomena, that they get intensity of the electron, scattered electron at certain point maximum and at certain point minimum, like the interference patterns. Now, then they predicted that the interference patterns which is produced by this particle, actually nothing but the reflection is taking place from the different interplanar spaces, planes in the crystal, like the Bragg's diffraction of X-ray from the crystal. As the visible light is diffracted by the diffraction grating, where a large number of slits are placed side by side. Similarly, for X-rays, for wavelength is very small. So the crystals are used as the grating. They are three-dimensional grating, because in crystals the atoms are arranged in a regular pattern. So the distance, interatomic distance, which is called the lattice distance between the atoms, they act as a slit for the high energetic electromagnetic radiation. Now here is the nickel target. So here suppose say all the nickel atoms are arranged regularly. In this way, different planes are there, and these electron beams are reflected from this surface, and the diffraction is taking place actually because they are passing through these slits. These two atoms, the space between these acts as slit, and this is the distance, the lattice distance d. And this d is different for different material. For nickel it is something else. For iron, for different metals, these spacings are different. Now this is your scattering angle phi, and these are the glancing angles. Now when this accelerated potential is go on increasing from an initial value, very low value, the value of the accelerating potential is going on increasing this slowly. So at very low accelerating potential, no such peaks are observed in the scattered electrons. Now, as the accelerating potential increases, peaks appear in the scattered beam. And the peak is attains its highest point at, say, when D is equal to 54 volt and your phi, the scattering angle, is equal to 50 degree, because the detector is rotating in different directions and different angles. When the accelerating potential V is equal to 54 volt and the detector has reached 50 degree, then the highest peak is observed. After that, if the accelerating potential is increased, then again the peak is diminished. Now, therefore, that is the H is a filament, the electron gun. Now, if we plot this intensity of the scattered beam versus the square root of the accelerating potential, if this type of curve is plotted, here the accelerating square root of the accelerating potential and here the intensity, then this type of peaks are observed in the scattered radiation. Now the highest peak is obtained here for 54 volt and phi equal to 50 degree. Now, so this phenomenon This is because the diffraction, it seems like a diffraction pattern. So the diffraction is a property of the wave. But here our beam is the particle beam, electron beam. Now therefore that means the electron beam is diffracted. Now therefore it is very similar to the diffraction of the electron beam. The pattern which is observed is very similar to diffraction of X-rays from crystals. Now, and the X-ray diffraction, the basic law which is used, that is called the Bragg's law. Now, therefore, from Bragg's law, from Bragg's condition, it is written as twice d sine theta is equal to n lambda. Lambda is the wavelength of the X-ray used in case of X-ray diffraction. N is the order, n is 1, 2, 3, all integers. Theta is the glancing angle and d is the interatomic spacing, lattice distance. Now d lattice distance and different for different crystal. Theta the glancing angle, lambda is the wavelength of the X-ray used, and n is all integer values, order of the spectrum, first order, second order, third order. Now, if we calculate the value of the wavelength, because the particle is not diffracting, the diffraction is a property of the wave. So here the same phenomena is observed, that means the wave which is associated with the electron, that is actually diffracted. So from this law one can calculate the wavelength of that wave which is associated with the electron. Now from this formula for nickel, because our target is nickel, for nickel your D is 0.091 nanometer. And here theta, the glancing angle, or phi was 50 degree, but theta which makes an angle with the surface of the atomic plane, that is 65 degree. And here we consider n is equal to 1, the first order, and n equal to 1. Now because in X-ray diffraction, X-ray is a high energetic electromagnetic radiation and it has a very strong penetrating power. That's why in general, when suppose the X-ray is diffracting from this crystal surface, then generally the X-ray is falling at a very large angle of incidence. If the angle of incidence is small, then the diffraction will not be observed, because most of the X-ray will penetrate through this. So that's why in X-ray diffraction, this angle which is very close to the surface, that is called the glancing angle. This angle is used here. So if we use that twice d sine theta is equal to lambda for a first order n equal to 1, then if we substitute all these values, then lambda comes out to be 0.165 nanometer. This will be the wavelength of the wave associated with the electron beam, which is calculated on the basis of the Bragg's diffraction formula. Now this same wavelength can be calculated by using the Bragg's law. By using the de Broglie's hypothesis. Now, if we use this relation, from the relation, wavelength is equal to h by the momentum of the electron. This is the wavelength associated with the electron beam. So this is the electron momentum. Now this momentum we have to calculate. Now the electron is accelerated through the potential V. So its kinetic energy is electron E into V, the charge of the electron multiplied by the voltage. So the kinetic energy of the electron, accelerated through the potential V, that is E square by twice m. M is the mass of the electron, kinetic energy, that is E into V. So from this one can calculate P, then P will be equal to square root of twice m E. So once you get P in terms of the accelerating voltage, so one can calculate lambda. So you get lambda is equal to h by this. Now here h is a constant quantity, mass of the electron charge. So and V is not 54 volt. So if we substitute all these values, then the lambda comes out to be, for V is equal to 54 volt, and substitute all these values, standard values, the Planck's constant, mass of the electron and the electron charge, then lambda comes out to be 0.166 nanometer. Therefore, the wavelength calculated by de Broglie's theory and from the Bragg's diffraction are consistent. So they are in close agreement with each other. That means from this one can infer that the electron diffraction is taking place from the nickel surface. So the wave-like character of the particle is established, because sometimes the particle can also behaves as a wave. So the dual character of the particle is also established. Now there is a discrepancy. Here the discrepancy is 0.001 nanometer. It is 0.116, 0.165. So discrepancy is this one. Now this discrepancy may arise due to the error involved in the energy calculation of the kinetic energy calculation of the electron, because because we are calculating the kinetic energy of the electron outside the crystal, because it is accelerating through a potential V, and we have calculated through this that P square by twice m is equal to EV. From that the P is calculated. But actually when the electron enters within the crystal, its kinetic energy will increase due to the work function of the material, because the electron enters into the crystal, so the nucleus of each atom will attract the electron. So due to that, the kinetic energy of the electron may increase, and as the kinetic energy will increase, so the lambda will be shorter than this one, because kinetic energy increase means that the momentum will also increase. So momentum is increasing, that means the lambda will decrease. So due to that fact, the lambda may come out say 0.165, very near to this. So this discrepancy may arise due to the work function of this material, because when electron enters into the crystal, the electron will be attracted, its kinetic energy will increase. So therefore, although discrepancy is very, very small, now therefore the result of the Davison and Germer experiment puts the de Broglie's hypothesis on a firm basis. So it is conclusively proved that the hypothesis is correct. That means the particle has also, like radiation, dual character. Sometimes it behaves as particle and sometimes it behaves as a wave, and that wave is associated with that moving particle. Now therefore in quantum mechanics, actually the particles are represented by the waves. So a particle is moving, suppose along this direction, so it is represented by a wave associated with it. And this wave is the wave packet, a group of waves which travels with the same velocity of the particle. So the particle, we know that the particle is confined within this region. Suppose this is the x-axis. So within this region, suppose say it is delta x. Within this delta x region, we know that particle is there. But we don't know exactly where the particle is within this delta x region. Either it may be here, or it may be here, it may be here, here or here. So you have to determine the position of the particle by probability. What is the probability of finding the particle at this point? What is the probability of finding at this point or at this point? But the total probability of finding the particle within this length delta x is 1. We know for certain the particle is here, is confined within this region. So there is always some uncertainty or errors are involved in the measurement of the position of this particle. Now, shorter will be the wavelength. If a wave group of such that the wavelength is very small, then the particle position can be determined more precisely. Shorter the wavelength, more precise will be the position measurement. But wavelength is shorter. According to this theory, lambda is equal to h by p. Shorter will be lambda, so larger will be the momentum. So if the wavelength becomes short so that the position can be measured very accurately, then the momentum will be very large. So in that case, the uncertainty or the error involved in the measurement of the momentum will be large. Similarly, if we want to measure the position, momentum of the particle very precisely, if the momentum is small, so in that case the lambda will be very large, so that the wavelength will be large, so the more uncertainty or more error will be involved in the measurement of the position of the particle. So So there is a restriction in the errors in the measurement of the position and momentum of a particle simultaneously and at the same time and at the same position. So, and you cannot minimize this error beyond a certain range. There is a certain minimum error that will be involved in the measurement. You cannot make it zero. Now, and these uncertainties or these errors arise, these are inherent in the measurement process. Whatever may be the sophisticated your instrument, you cannot make it zero or you cannot come beyond a certain minimum limit. So here, shorter the wavelength, more precise is the position measurement. And large errors come in the momentum measurement. Similarly, if the wavelength is large, less precise is its position, and more accurate is the momentum measurement. So there is a restriction between the errors in the measurement of position and momentum. Now, and these errors which arise in the measurement of this is inherent in the measurement process. Now, let us consider, say, suppose if we have a wave function of like this, a Gaussian shape, symmetric on all sides, on both the sides, that is, it is represented by, say, a to the power minus, say, x squared, like this. A is the amplitude. Now, if we consider a length interval, suppose the delta x, then the wave function, this is the standard deviation in the wave function. Now let us consider an interval, say delta x, this is the x-axis, then the number of waves fitted in this length delta x, let that is delta k, let delta k, this is the wave number of waves, number of wavelengths fitted in delta x. Delta x is the standard deviation in the wave function psi of x. And delta k is the momentum space. Now, for the Gaussian shape of waves, these are the standard deviations. This is standard theory that for Gaussian wave function, the product of say delta x and delta k, that is equal to exactly half. This is the highly symmetric wave function. Now, for all other wave function except this Gaussian one, this product of these standard deviations will be greater than half. So, for all other wave functions, this product delta x and delta k is greater or equal to. So, the momentum of a particle the momentum p, that is equal to h by lambda. This lambda, it has value twice pi by k, because k is 2 pi by lambda. So we get h k by 2 pi. So delta p, uncertainty in the measurement of the momentum, that is h by 2 pi delta k. Now delta in general, the delta x and delta k is greater or equal to half. So if we substitute the value of delta k from here, that is greater or equal to 1 by twice x, then you get delta p is equal to h by 2 pi, delta k is one by twice delta x. So the product of the uncertainties in the position measurement and momentum measurement, that is delta p into delta x, that is greater or equal to h by 4 pi, or that is written as h cross by 2, where the quantity, this h cross, is h by 2 pi. So the product of the errors involved in the measurement of the position and the momentum, that will be greater or equal to h cross by 2. You cannot minimize it more than this. So, but here the position, so this is the uncertainty relation. Similarly, the uncertainty exists between delta energy and time, delta E and delta T greater or equal to h cross by 2. Angular momentum, delta F angular momentum into angular position, that It is equal to h cross by 2. But here one thing, say delta p is a momentum. We are measuring the position along the x direction. So that is the momentum along the x direction. So more precisely, one should write that delta x, delta px greater or equal to h cross by 2, delta y, delta py, it will be greater or equal to h cross by 2, delta z, delta pz greater or equal to h cross by 2. But delta x, delta py, that will not satisfy. This will not satisfy this equation. This is wrong. So momentum, position and momentum in the same direction. Position in the x along the x axis and momentum in the y axis you can measure very accurately. No problem. So what is the statement of the Heisenberg uncertainty principle? That it is impossible to measure the position and momentum in the same direction of a particle simultaneously is very important word, simultaneously at the same time with unlimited accuracy. You cannot measure the position and momentum with unlimited accuracy. There is a restriction. And the physical, that was the physical meaning of this uncertainty principle. Physical meaning of the uncertainty principle. What is the physical meaning of the uncertainty principle? So, unlike the classical particle, there is no concept of path of the quantum mechanical particle. Physical meaning. There is no concept of path of a quantum mechanical particle. This is the physical meaning. That's why in the present theory, the concept of orbit, that is the electrons are revolving in this orbit whose distance from the nucleus is this much Armstrong, this is discarded. You cannot fix the position of the particle, because if you fix the position of the particle, then you can measure its position very accurately, but simultaneously the momentum measurement, the error involved in the momentum measurement will be very, very large. So that's why the concept of orbit is discarded. Now in quantum mechanics, everything is determined in terms of probability, because we don't know for certain where the particle is, what is its position, what is its momentum. certain errors are there always, that everything is determined in terms of probability, and therefore the physical observables like position, momentum, angular momentum, everything is determined in terms of its expectation value. That is most expected value or probable value. That's why in quantum mechanics, the observables like say position, say momentum, energy, angular momentum, etc. are determined by their expectation values. More probable values. And as the probability is a conserved quantity in quantum mechanics, so everything is determined in terms of the probability of finding the particle at a certain point. That gives you the position expectation value. Similarly, energy expectation value. We have to calculate everything in terms of its expectation value. Now, why this restriction is there? In quantum mechanics, the present state is not certain because you cannot define the position and momentum with only limited accuracy. So the position, the present state is uncertain. There is certain uncertainty in defining the present state. So the future state cannot be determined precisely because more uncertainty will be there. Now why this uncertainty arises? Because this is inherent in the measurement process. Suppose a stone is going, a cricket ball is throwing. So we find the position of the cricket ball. Suppose follows a parabolic path. Suppose a macroscopic say ball is here. It has some weight. Suppose 100 gram. A ball is moving. So one can accurately determine its position at initial time, and you can calculate and see after a certain time what will be its position and what will be the momentum. So here, how do we measure the position of this macroscopic body? By throwing light on it, because we observe this when the light is reflected back from it to our eyes. So by throwing the photon on it, one can measure its position and as well as momentum very accurately, because the photon has a very light mass, so its momentum, a moving mass, so its momentum is very, very small. So it will, when the photon hits this particle, the momentum of that particle will not change appreciably. It is almost change in momentum is zero. So for classical particles, heavier particles, whose momentum is very high, comparable to this photon, so you can measure its position and momentum very accurately. But for the quantum mechanical particle, suppose instead of a cricket ball it is an electron, whose momentum is of the order of this photon. So when this photon hits this electron, its momentum will change. So simultaneously at the same time, if we concentrate on this position, then you cannot concentrate very accurately on its momentum. So momentum is a large change in the momentum. So whatever may be your instrument, because you have to hit it by the photon. So in that case, both of the have the same order of magnitude in the momentum. So when it hits it, its momentum will change. So the position and momentum for the atomic and subatomic particles, whose momentum is in the range of the photon, they cannot be measured very accurately. So this is the error involved in the measuring process. Now this situation is like that. Suppose you have a 15 coulomb charge here. How do you find the electric field at a position? We put a test charge here. And what is the value of post test charge? We write Q goes to 0. That is, electric field is equal to force acting between this charge and this charge distribution divided by Q, where Q goes to 0. It is very, very small. Why the test charge is very, very small? One can take a Q is equal to, suppose if you take a Q a 5 coulomb charge, then can you get the accurate value of the electric field produced by this charge distribution? The answer is in the negative, because this 5 coulomb charge disturbs the original lines of force of this charge distribution. So you cannot get the accurate value of the electric field here. So the test charge should not be comparable to the original charge distribution. It should be very, very small, so that it should not disturb more these lines of force of this original charge distribution. That's why we take that this test charge should go to 0. That is very, very small. Similarly, here also you cannot, for classical particle, your photon momentum is very, very small. The situation is like this. No problem. That's why accurately one can measure the position and momentum of a macroscopic body, of a classical body. And from the present state, one can find the future state also very accurately. But for quantum mechanical particles, that is atomic and subatomic particles, their momentum are of the same order. Therefore, when it hits this electron, it changes momentum by a very appreciable amount. That's why you cannot measure the position and the momentum with unlimited accuracy. This is the basic principle why this uncertainty arises. And the whole quantum mechanics is based on this uncertainty principle. Now, without uncertainty principle, the quantum mechanics is impossible. And the quantum mechanics is the more general theory. It is applicable to all, say, subatomic and the macroscopic systems. And the classical mechanics or the Newtonian mechanics, which stands on the Newton's second law of motion, force is equal to mass into acceleration. So classical mechanics is a particular case of the quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics is the more general theory, and classical mechanics is a particular case of the quantum mechanical theory.